The prophecy did not fail, the world did. When Alpha King Aethelric Wulfrune meets Eadgyth of House Aelfwynne, the mate bond ignites. And so does a bloodline once erased for threatening Alpha rule itself. She was never meant to be found. And loving her will tear the kingdom apart. On the night the moon split the sky, the old women locked their doors and fed salt to the fires. Wolves lifted their heads from sleep. Rivers slowed as if listening. In the high keep of Blackmere, Alpha King Aethelric Wulfrune stood alone on the battlements and felt the kingdom lean, like a breath held too long. They had warned him this season would break something. Court augurs spoke of unrest, of treaties thinning to parchment and patience fraying to thread. The Pax wanted a Luna, wanted her yesterday, someone with a clean lineage, a name that soothed allies and frightened rivals into order. Aethelric had delayed, sharpened by grief and duty, convinced that power bought with haste was a blade that turned in the hand. Tonight, under the divided moons, even that certainty wavered. Below, the city murmured. Torches stitched the streets together, amber and trembling. Somewhere a child cried, then laughed. Life went on stubborn and small. Aethelric pressed his palm to the cold stone and closed his eyes. The dreams had returned with the moons. Blood-dark roots climbing walls, a woman's breath against his throat, the sound of children counting stars in a language he did not know. Behind him the keep doors creaked. Leofston Blackmere crossed the flagstones with careful steps, cloak folded like a verdict. "My king," he said, voice steady. "The council waits." Aethelric did not turn. "They always do. They are anxious." Leofston paused. Beornwulf Ironveins' envoys arrived at dusk. "He presses for a marriage pact." "Of course he does." Aethelric opened his eyes. The left moon glowed milk-pale. The right burned rust-red, a scar across heaven. "And the augurs? They whisper of a prophecy," Leofston said, and the word tasted sour in the air. "An old one. Buried." Aethelric's jaw tightened. "Say it." "When twin daughters walk beneath a divided sky," Leofston recited reluctant, "the Alpha will be led not to dominion but to truth. The truth will unmake what was made." Silence pressed in. Aethelric turned at last, studying his counselor's face. Leofston was loyal as stone, beloved by law and lineage. He had helped erase whole chapters of history to keep the realm intact. "Truth is a luxury," Aethelric said. "I require stability." "So does the realm," Leofston replied. "Which is why the council urges you to choose." A gust climbed the battlements. The torches guttered. Aethelric felt it then, the prickle at the base of his neck, the sense of being watched. Not hunted, guided. He dismissed Leofston with a nod and descended the spiral stairs alone. The great hall smelled of wax and iron. Banners hung stiff, wolves stitched in thread that caught the torchlight. The council's voices rose and fell, names offered like coins. Aethelric listened without hearing. His thoughts snagged on the prophecy's last line. "The truth will unmake what was made." It was then the children entered. They were small, hand in hand, soot-smudged and calm. No herald announced them. Guards did not bar their way. The hall seemed to breathe them in. One smiled as if she knew a joke the room had forgotten. The other's eyes were solemn, dark as wells. "Your Majesty," the smiling one said, bowing with a grace that felt borrowed from another age. "We are late." A ripple of outrage moved the benches. Aethelric rose, instinct sharp. "Who are you?" "I am Winflade," said the first. "This is Sinewise." Sinewise inclined her head. The torches leaned toward her, wicks hissing. Leofston stood. "Remove them." "No," Aethelric said, surprising himself. His gaze fixed on the twins. The air around them hummed, not loud but precise. "How did you come here?" "We walked," Winflade said. When the sky told us to. Sinewise spoke, voice soft as snow. You are searching in the wrong rooms. Aethelric felt the words strike somewhere behind his ribs. Searching for what? For a Luna, Gwynflade said brightly. And for permission. Laughter broke, brittle. Aethelric raised a hand. Permission for what? To leave, Sinewise said. Now. Thunder rolled without rain. Outside a bell tolled once, then stopped. The divided moon slipped behind cloud, then emerged, brighter. Aethelric's pulse slowed. The dreams aligned themselves like pieces finding their edges. Why should I listen, he asked. Gwynflade tilted her head. Because the path you need does not run through halls. And because, Sinewise added, your Luna is forbidden. The word landed heavy. Forbidden meant erased names, burned lineages, wars that taught silence. Leofston's face drained of color. Enough, he said. This is treason. Aethelric stepped forward. The twins did not retreat. He saw then the mark at Sinewise's wrist, faint as moonwash, a sigil he recognized from a fragment kept under lock. House Aelfwynne. Veiled blood. Where, Aethelric said slowly, is she? Gwynflade smiled, and for a heartbeat the hall felt young. Beyond the borders you guard. Sinewise met his gaze. Beyond the laws you trust. Outside a wolf howled long and low, answered by another. The city stilled. Aethelric made his choice with the quiet certainty of stone settling. Saddle the horses, he said. At dawn. Leofston reached for him. Aethelric did not look back. As the twins turned to go, Gwynflade glanced over her shoulder. The truth will hurt, she said kindly. Sinewise finished it. But it will not let you go. When they were gone, the hall exhaled. Aethelric stood beneath the banners and felt the kingdom tilt, not toward ruin, but toward something older than fear. Somewhere, unseen, forbidden blood remembered his name. Dawn did not come gently. It arrived bruised, clouds bruising clouds, light pressed thin as linen. The stables rang with iron and breath. Aethelric chose his own mount, a grey mare scarred at the flank, a survivor. As he tightened the girth, he felt the weight of eyes. Courtiers clustered like ravens, whispering. Some bowed. Others turned away. Leofston found him there, hands bare despite the cold. If you cross the borders, he said low, you invite challenge. Beornwulf will call it abdication. Let him, Aethelric said. He mistakes noise for power. And the lineage? Leofston pressed. House Aelfwynne is a poison word. Their daughters were said to unbind. Aethelric finished. He remembered the scraps. Lunas who stood beside kings and spoke law, whose children dreamed before they walked, whose blood sang against chains. He remembered the purge that followed, the quiet relief when the songs stopped. We outlawed balance, he said. Then called it order. Leofston's mouth thinned. If she lives, the council will not accept her. They do not need to, Aethelric replied, and surprised himself with the truth of it. Gwynflade and Sinewise waited by the gate, cloaks too thin, faces turned east. When Aethelric approached, Gwynflade counted under her breath. 7 steps, she murmured. Good. We're on time. Sinewise touched the gatepost. The iron warmed. They will try to stop us before the river. Aethelric swung into the saddle. The city gate opened with a groan like a beast waking. As they rode out, the wind shifted, carrying the scent of wet earth and something wilder. He felt the mate bond ache like a bruise not yet earned, a promise with teeth. Beyond the walls the road forked. The twins did not hesitate. Aethelric followed, the kingdom shrinking behind him, the prophecy's shadow lengthening ahead. He did not look back because he knew, with a clarity that burned, that the truth had already chosen him. By mid-morning the sky cleared. The moon's gone, but there seems still visible a pale scar. Aethelric felt watched by history itself. Every hoofbeat seemed to strike an old bell, calling witnesses long dead. He thought of Eadgyth without knowing her name, of blood veiled and waiting, of a sanctuary that breathed like a lung. Power, he realized, was not the crown. It was the courage to meet what had been forbidden and refuse to turn away. Ahead, Gwynflade laughed at nothing. Sinewise raised her hand, and the road bent, obedient. The prophecy unfurled behind their backs, inked in shadow, and the kingdom, restless and afraid, leaned toward the sound of its own unmaking. Far off a horn sounded, then another, signals crossing like blades. Aethelric did not slow. He breathed in, tasted iron and rain, and felt his heart answer a rhythm older than banners. Whatever waited beyond the river would demand a price. He would pay it. Because somewhere beyond the law he had sworn to uphold, a woman carried a history the world had tried to kill, and the divided sky had finally called its debt due. The road dipped. The river breathed. Fate stepped closer, quiet as snow. Aethelric set his jaw, followed the twins, and let the shadow fall where it must. Behind them bells rang too late. Ahead the world waited, unarmed against love. Destiny had teeth, and it smiled. The journey began, irreversible, under a sky that would remember them all. Even the stones listened, counting every step toward forbidden truth. Last now. By the time the river came into view, the road had learned their names. Mist clung low, veiling the banks like a held breath. The water moved with a patience that felt deliberate, sliding around stones as if deciding what to keep. Aethelric reined in and studied the crossing. No bridge. No ferry. Only a ford marked by old posts scarred with runes half-eaten by lichen. Gwynflade hopped down from her pony and peered into the fog. "It listens," she said cheerfully. "Say it kindly." Sinewise did not dismount. She closed her eyes, fingers flexing once, as if testing a pulse. "Say nothing," she murmured. "Step where the cold thins." Aethelric swung down, boots sinking into damp earth. The river smelled of iron and leaves. He glanced back toward the road, half expecting banners, horns, the reach of law. There was only the hush of moving water and the twins' certainty, a quiet that pressed harder than command. They crossed without trouble. The ford accepted their weight, stones rising underfoot like remembered hands. On the far bank, the mist thinned and the land opened into a low valley stitched with alder and thorn. The air changed. It tasted old. Not decayed, layered. "This place," Aethelric said, then stopped. Words failed. Gwynflade grinned. "Yes." Sinewise's eyes tracked the tree lean. "We are seen." They rode on. By noon the path narrowed, hemmed by bramble that tugged at cloaks and reins. Tracks appeared, wolves, but larger than any pack Aethelric knew. He felt the prickle again, the sense of being weighed. When he reached for his sword, Gwynflade shook her head. "Not yet," she said. "They're deciding." A low growl rolled from the trees, answered by another, closer. Aethelric dismounted, stance easy, blade ready. He did not bare his teeth. He waited. A shape stepped out, gray as smoke, eyes bright as coins. It sniffed the air, head tilting. Another followed, then a third. They did not advance. They did not retreat. They watched the twins. Sinewise lifted her chin. "We pass," she said, voice steady. The wolves' ears flicked. One wafted a breath of sound and turned away. The others followed, melting back into bark and leaf. Aethelric exhaled slowly. "You command them." Gwynflade shrugged. "They remember." "Remember what?" "That there were once roads that weren't roads," she said. "And kings who listened." They pressed deeper. The valley rose, the ground stoning underfoot. By afternoon the first obstacle met them, a cleft in the earth, sheer and sudden, swallowing the path. Wind sighed up from it, cold as winter breath. Aethelric tested the edge. The drop was too far. "We go around." Sinuwise shook her head. "Around is watched." Winflaid crouched, peering into the dark. "Down is honest." Aethelric frowned. "You expect me to." The earth shifted. A rock slid, vanished. The cleft answered with a hollow echo. Aethelric made his choice. He tied the reins, checked his blade, and followed as the twins climbed down a narrow seam in the stone, handholds worn smooth by time. The descent scraped knuckles and nerves, but the ledges held. Halfway down, Aethelric felt it, the tug again, a pull like a hand at his spine, guiding. At the bottom, a cave mouth yawned, dry and lit by a seam of light. Symbols etched the walls, familiar and forbidden. Aethelric traced one with his thumb, heart stuttering. House Aelfwynne's knot, simplified, stripped of name. "You know it," Sinuwise said. "I do," Aethelric replied. "We erased it." "Stone keeps what men lose," Winflaid said softly. They climbed out on the far side as dusk bled in. Smoke rose ahead, thin and wrong. Aethelric signaled halt. He crept forward, cresting a low rise. Riders waited below. 5, armored, banners furled but colors unmistakable. Beornwulf's scouts. Their leader laughed, sound sharp as metal. "Well," he called, "if it isn't the king chasing ghosts." Aethelric stepped into view. "Stand aside." The man's smile widened. "Can't." "Orders." Deal sang free. The twins did not flinch. The fight was brief and brutal. Aethelric moved with practiced economy, parrying, striking, breath measured. A blade glanced off his shoulder, bit shallow. He answered with a cut that dropped a rider screaming. Another lunged from behind, then stopped, frozen, eyes wide. Sinuwise stood with one hand raised, fingers splayed. The man's breath hitched. He fell unharmed, weeping. Winflaid darted between combatants, voice bright. "Left, no, your other left." Aethelric obeyed without thinking, blade finding its mark. When it ended, 2 riders fled, leaving blood darkening the grass. Aethelric wiped his sword. His pulse slowed. "You bend more than wolves." Sinuwise lowered her hand. "We bend choices." "They will come again," Winflaid said. Louder. They did. Night fell hard, and with it, the land turned hostile. Roots snagged hooves. Stones rolled. An arrow hissed from the dark and thudded into a tree inches from Aethelric's head. He broke right, then left, instinct sharpened. Another arrow came, and shattered midair, split clean. Winflaid beamed. "Good timing." Sinuwise swayed, catching herself on Aethelric's arm. He steadied her, surprised by how light she felt, like a thought. They pressed on until the land softened again, trees parting to reveal a ring of standing stones. Quiet. Aethelric posted watch and built a small fire. The twins sat opposite him, shadows long and wavering. "Why me?" he asked at last. Winflaid considered. "You didn't ask to be spared." Sinuwise met his gaze. "You will choose." Aethelric stared into the fire. "Between what?" "Between order and truth," Winflaid said. "Between the crown you wear and the blood you'll kneel to." The fire popped. Sparks lifted like brief stars. Aethelric felt the ache again, sharper now, a pull eastward that tightened when he breathed. "She's alive," he said, certainty settling. "Yes," Sinuwise said. "Protected. For now." "By whom?" "By what remains," Winflaid answered. "And by what wakes when you draw near." Sleep came fitfully. Dreams threaded him, roots, water, a woman standing barefoot on stone, hair dark as wet earth, eyes lifted as if she knew the moment he crossed the river. He woke before dawn with blood singing and the taste of rain. They broke camp as the sky paled. The land ahead rose into teeth of rock. Aethelric felt watched again, closer now, intent sharpening. He did not doubt the twins. He doubted the mercy of what lay between him and the sanctuary. At the ridge, Sinuwise stopped. "Beyond this," she said, "force will answer force." Winflade squeezed Aethelric's hand, brief and fierce. "Don't flinch." He nodded, jaw set. Below them, the path wound into shadow. Horns sounded in the distance, closer than before. Aethelric drew his blade, feeling its balance, and stepped forward as the twins took the lead, small figures against a widening world. Behind them, the valley closed like a book. Ahead, destiny sharpened itself. The whispering guides walked on, and the king followed, learning the weight of listening. Continue. The ridge fell away into a land that did not welcome footsteps. Stone gave way to ash-gray soil, brittle underhoof, marked by old scorched scars that never quite healed. Wind slid low and sharp, carrying the smell of metal and something fouler beneath it. Aethelric felt it immediately, the sensation of crossing into a remembered wrong. The air pressed closer, as if the land itself leaned in to judge. "This was a battlefield," he said. Winflade nodded, skipping lightly from rock to rock. 3 times over. People forget where blood settles. Sinuwise walked slower, eyes unfocused, palms open at her sides. "The ground still listens," she murmured. "Step gently." They had not gone far when the first sign of pursuit appeared. Tracks cut across the path, wolves shod in iron, their gait disciplined, deliberate. Not scouts. Hunters. Aethelric crouched, touching the print. Fresh. Beornwulf's. "Not only his," Winflade said. Her smile was gone now, replaced by something watchful. Others smelled the shift. The path narrowed into a ravine, walls rising sharp and close. Aethelric felt the trap even as he entered it. The twins did not slow. Halfway through, the air cracked. A rock screamed down from above, shattering at Aethelric's feet. He lunged back as another followed, then another. Shouts echoed from the rim. Steel flashed. "Up!" Aethelric barked. He surged forward, blade up, muscles burning as he scaled the wall. A spear struck where his head had been a heartbeat before. He tore it free, flung it back. A body fell, striking stone with a wet finality. More came. Too many. Sinuwise lifted both hands. The ravine answered. The ground shuddered, stones locking together like clenched teeth. The falling rocks froze mid-descent, suspended as if caught in thick air. For one suspended moment, silence rang. Then the stones dropped, not down but outward, slamming into the ravine walls. The attackers scattered, screams ripped away by echo. Sinuwise swayed, knees buckling. Aethelric caught her, arm firm around her back. Her skin was cold, her pulse racing. "Enough," he said, low and fierce. "You will not bleed yourself dry for me." She looked up, eyes clear despite the strain. "You must reach her," she said simply. "That is the cost." They climbed out of the ravine into smoke. Fires dotted the plain ahead. Campfires ringed by banners stitched with unfamiliar sigils. Coalition. Old rivals wearing new colors, united by one thing. Stopping what fate had set in motion. Aethelric counted quickly. Too many for a clean fight. Winflade crouched beside him, suddenly serious. "You doubt us." "I doubt the odds," Aethelric replied. She smiled, sharp and bright. "Good. Doubt makes room." She clapped once. The sound rippled outward, not loud but deep, like a struck bell beneath the earth. The plain answered. Smoke shifted. Shadows lengthened unnaturally. Figures moved where none had been. Wolves, tall and pale-eyed, their forms half smoke, half bone. Ancestor spirits, bound to no pack banner. The coalition's horses screamed, rearing. Men shouted prayers that fell apart mid-word. "Go," Gwynflade said. "Now." They ran. The spirits did not attack. They watched. That was worse. Panic spread faster than blades. The coalition fractured, men turning on one another. Certain betrayal had found them. By the time the smoke thinned, Aethelric and the twins were gone. They did not stop running until their lungs burned and the land softened beneath their feet. Grass replaced ash. Water trickled nearby. Aethelric bent, hands on knees, breathing hard. "You could have left me," he said. Gwynflade shrugged. "We need you breathing." Sinuwise sat heavily, pressing her palms into the earth. Color crept back into her face. "The land grows louder," she said. "Closer." They followed the stream as dusk crept in. Trees gathered thickly now, trunks twisted, bark marked with ancient cuts. "Wards. Old ones." Aethelric slowed. "These are Luna wards." "Yes," Sinuwise said. "Not Alpha Maid." The realization settled heavy. "She has been protected longer than my throne has stood." They made camp beneath a bent oak whose roots rose like ribs. Aethelric set snares, caught a hare, cleaned it quickly. He worked in silence, mind turning. "You're afraid," Gwynflade said suddenly. "Of losing my crown?" he asked. She shook her head. "Of kneeling?" Aethelric stilled. He did not deny it. Night deepened. The forest hummed. Insects, distant water, the breath of things unseen. Aethelric took first watch. As the twins slept, curled together like mirror images, he paced the perimeter, senses tight. Movement flickered between trees. Aethelric drew his blade. "Show yourself." A figure stepped into firelight. Old, tall, wrapped in skin stitched with bone. His eyes shone amber. "Hrothmir," Aethelric breathed. "A name from forbidden chronicles." "The Bound," the guardian said, voice like gravel dragged through water. "You are late, king." Aethelric did not bow. He did not attack. "I followed the road I was shown." Hrothmir's gaze slid to the twins. "They awaken debts." Sinuwise stirred, eyes opening. "He may pass." Hrothmir's lips twitched. "If he survives." The guardian struck the ground with his staff. The earth split, revealing a path glowing faintly blue, winding into the heart of the forest. "One trial remains," Hrothmir said. "Blood may not answer it. Authority will fail." Aethelric sheathed his sword. "Then name it." Hrothmir's eyes fixed on him. "Choice." The path closed behind them as they stepped onto it, sealing with a sound like a held breath released. The forest pressed closer, alive with watching. Visions struck without warning. Aethelric staggered as images tore through him. Eadgyth standing alone as the council condemned her, blood on marble. Beornwulf's banner flying over Blackmere. A child with his eyes and her smile screaming as flames rose. He dropped to one knee, chest heaving. "Look," Gwynflade whispered. "Do not turn away." Sinuwise knelt before him, placing 2 fingers against his brow. "Every future demands a death," she said. "Which will you accept?" Aethelric lifted his head. Sweat streaked his face. His voice did not waver. "The crown," he said. "If it must die, let it be mine." The forest exhaled. The path brightened, widening. The pain receded, leaving behind a steady ache. Bearable, chosen. Hrothmir bowed his head once. "Then you may see her." Dawn broke as they emerged from the trees onto high ground overlooking a valley cupped like a secret. At its heart stood stone ruins wrapped in flowering vines, light gathering around them as if drawn. Aethelric felt it then. Not a pull, but a recognition so deep it hollowed him out. "She is there," he said. "Yes," Sinuwise replied. "And the world will bleed for it." Gwynflade grinned, fierce and proud. But not today. Behind them, horns sounded again, closer, angrier. Ahead, the sanctuary waited. Aethelric stepped forward without hesitation, heart steady, destiny tightening its grip. The valley stretched wide beneath the rising sun, its slopes littered with ancient stones that whispered secrets of ages long erased. Aethelric Wulfrune felt the pull of Eadgyth's presence stronger here, each step heavier with expectation. The twins led, their movements precise, almost as if the ground itself responded to their will. He rode close behind, sword sheathed, eyes sharp, yet his mind reeled with unease. Why protect her? Aethelric asked, voice low. Why risk everything for a child of a lineage deemed heretical? Gwynflade glanced over her shoulder, hair catching the light. Because she carries what was stolen from the world, she said simply. Not a crown, not a throne. Balance. Truth. Sinuwise's eyes flicked to him, steady as stone. And because only you can recognize it, Alpha. Aethelric's chest tightened. Recognition was a heavy burden. His pack expected a Luna of convenience, one who would cement alliances. Instead, he followed two children across hostile land, guided by whispers of prophecy, to a woman whose blood had been hunted into oblivion. And yet, he felt her not as myth, but as a pulse beneath his skin. The first obstacle arose suddenly. A ridge of jagged stone split the path, a narrow ledge scraping the mountainside. Below, the valley fell away into nothingness, shadows swallowing the river. Aethelric tested the footing. Even a misstep would be fatal. Stay close, he warned. We know, Gwynflade said, and without hesitation, she stepped forward, balancing with unnatural grace. Sinewise followed, tracing her twin's path. Aethelric moved after them, every sense alert. The wind howled, tugging at his cloak, carrying with it faint laughter, mocking or warning he couldn't tell. Halfway across, a shout rang from the valley below. Rival pack scouts emerged, their weapons raised, eyes hard. Beornwulf Ironvein's mark was clear, silver sigils etched into their armor. Aethelric drew his sword, feeling the cold comfort of steel in his hand. They've come early, he muttered. Gwynflade raised her hand, and the wind seemed to obey, swirling around the scouts, lifting leaves and debris like a small storm. Horses reared, men cried out, and in the chaos, the twins slipped past the attackers. Aethelric followed, slicing through the confusion with precision, disarming rather than killing when he could. Still two fell to his blade. Breathing heavily, he reached the other side. The twins waited, faces calm as though nothing had occurred. You can't save everyone, he said, voice low. And you can't bend every outcome. Gwynflade smiled faintly. No. But we bend enough. Sinewise placed a hand on his shoulder, grounding him. Trust us, Alpha. The path narrows, and your doubts will only widen the danger. The remainder of the day passed in tense silence. The valley opened into a dense forest, ancient trees stretching toward the heavens, roots curling like serpents. Faint symbols were carved into the bark, runes older than any kingdom he knew. House Aelfwynne's sigil appeared intermittently, subtle and ghost-like. Aethelric traced one with his thumb, feeling the echo of a legacy erased. They were powerful, he muttered, almost to himself. Stronger than any alpha should allow. Exactly, Sinewise said. And now you follow them to their heir. The forest grew darker, the canopy swallowing light. The air carried a tension that made his skin prickle. They set up camp in a clearing encircled by ancient stones, half buried and twisted with age. Aethelric kept watch, sword near, senses stretched to the limit. Every snap of a branch, every whisper of the wind, demanded attention. Night fell like a shroud. The twins curled together near the fire, whispering in a language he did not recognize. He did not attempt to understand. He merely observed, aware that their connection to each other, to the prophecy, was unbreakable. A rustle in the underbrush drew his attention. From the shadows emerged Hrothmir the Bound, the ancient guardian. His presence was a ripple in the air, unnerving in its quiet authority. "You have crossed much," Hrothmir said, voice like gravel over stone. "Yet greater trials lie ahead." Aethelric did not lower his sword. "I am not afraid." "Afraid?" Hrothmir chuckled dryly. "Fear is not the question. Survival is. Loyalty is. You follow children across lands your ancestors would have died defending. And yet, here you are. They have chosen you." The twins did not speak. Their hands brushed lightly, the motion simple, deliberate. Aethelric watched, understanding in fragments. These girls were more than guides. They were keepers of the prophecy, conduits for forces that no man could command. "Tomorrow," Hrothmir continued, "you will see the first test of her sanctuary. Only those who trust beyond the known will pass." The fire crackled between them. Aethelric looked at the twins, then at Hrothmir. Trust was a fragile currency, yet for the first time in his life, he felt it pressing heavily in his chest. To fail them was to fail fate itself. Sleep claimed him reluctantly, dreams laced with shadows of the past, women standing against kings, bloodlines severed, voices whispering his name. He awoke with dawn, body tense, mind alert. The forest awaited, patient and infinite. They broke camp swiftly. The valley ahead revealed a narrow gorge, guarded not by men but by the earth itself. Stones that shifted, roots that curled into grasping hands. Aethelric followed the twins closely, every step a negotiation with gravity and instinct. Midway through, the first wave of challengers appeared. Not human, not wolf, but something older, bound to the forest by magic older than Blackmere itself. Shadows coalesced into forms, faces indistinct, eyes glowing faintly. "Stand firm," Sinewise whispered. The shadows advanced. Aethelric raised his sword, ready to strike, yet they paused, circling the group, studying rather than attacking. The twins moved confidently among them, murmuring words that seemed to bend the creature's will. Slowly, the shadows parted, revealing a path clear and glowing faintly blue. "You see," Winflade said, walking ahead, "sometimes trust is forged not in victory, but in fire." Aethelric exhaled, feeling the weight of every decision he had made pressing down like stone. He had chosen to follow, to trust, to place his faith in two children and an erased bloodline. And yet, for the first time, he felt the inexorable pull of destiny, relentless and real. Ahead, the ruins of the sanctuary loomed in shadow, its stones breathing history and power. He sensed her there, Eadgyth, their fates converging, inevitable as the tide. Every step forward carried the promise of revelation, danger, and a bond that no prophecy could fully contain. The twins led on, shadows behind the rising sun. Aethelric followed, sword at his side, heart bound to a truth he had not yet seen. The perilous journey had only begun, and trust, once fragile, was now his most potent weapon. The forest thinned as they approached the high valley, revealing cliffs streaked with pale stone and crowned with mist. Aethelric's breath hitched, not with fear but with anticipation. Every instinct he possessed screamed that they were near. The twins walked ahead, their steps light but purposeful, guiding him along a narrow ridge that dropped sharply on either side. "This place," Aethelric muttered, voice barely audible. "It feels alive." "It remembers," Sinewise said softly. "Every hand that touched these stones, every word spoken within them. And it waits." Winflade turned her gaze to him, eyes glimmering with something older than years. "The Luna you seek has not only been hidden, Alpha. She has been shielded, guarded, and revered. This sanctuary is her cradle and her cage. Aethelric's hand brushed the hilt of his sword. He did not need it yet. Something in the air, a pulse beneath the stones, told him that no ordinary weapon could breach what lay ahead. The path widened into a clearing rimmed with towering stones carved with intricate runes. Ivy clung to their surfaces, thick and wild, but the carvings beneath were unmistakable. House Aelfwynne. Every sigil whispered a memory, a lineage erased from all histories. Aethelric's pulse quickened. They knew we would come, he said. Or perhaps they hoped we would fail. Both, Sinuwise replied, her gaze scanning the ruins. And yet here you are. The twins led him through a narrow archway, the air cooling as they passed. Inside, a courtyard spread before them, overgrown but eerily ordered. At the center stood a fountain carved from pale stone, water still and glass-like. Moss covered the edges, yet the design bore the unmistakable elegance of a lineage steeped in ancient magic. Aethelric stepped closer, senses straining. Something moved within the shadows, a shift in the air that carried a presence he recognized before he saw it. "She is here," Winflade said, voice low. From the far side of the courtyard, a figure emerged. Tall, poised, and unlike anyone Aethelric had ever encountered, she moved with a quiet authority. Hair the color of midnight fell in waves, framing a face both striking and severe. Her eyes, dark and fathomless, locked on him. Eadgyth of House Aelfwynne, the forbidden Luna. Aethelric halted mid-step, breath caught between awe and disbelief. She was more than the whispers had promised, more than the fragments of prophecy conveyed. And yet, there was an undeniable pull, raw and insistent, threading through him like a living thing. "You've come," she said, her voice calm but carrying the weight of centuries. "You followed children through lands that would have killed lesser men." "I came because it is my duty," Aethelric replied steadily, though his heart betrayed him. "And because the path chose me." Eadgyth's gaze softened for a fraction, but her posture remained poised, guarded. "Duty brought you this far. Choice will determine if you leave it standing." The twins stepped forward. Winflade placed a hand briefly on his shoulder. "The sanctuary tests all who approach. Not with fire or steel, but with truth," Sinuwise added. "You will know her fully, or not at all. There is no middle." Aethelric took a measured step forward. The air shifted, faint ripples dancing across the fountain's glass-like surface. He felt the weight of history pressing down. Women who once guided kings, bloodlines erased, whispers that had survived centuries. "Why are you forbidden?" he asked, voice low. Eadgyth's eyes darkened. "Because my blood carries what your world fears most. Balance. Power without control. Authority without dominion. I am the last of a line that once ruled beside alphas, not beneath them. That is why they sought to erase me. That is why my sanctuary has never been violated." Aethelric's throat tightened. "And yet here you stand." "Yes," she said, stepping closer, each movement deliberate. "And now you must decide. Will you see me as a threat or as what the prophecy promised?" The air thickened, electric. The pull between them intensified, unyielding and immediate. Aethelric felt it deep in his chest, a bond forming before words, a connection older than the kingdoms around him. "I do not yet know what this bond will demand," he admitted, voice steady but reverent. "But I cannot turn away." Eadgyth studied him, measuring, searching. Then, as though conceding to the inevitable, she extended her hand. "Then come closer, Alpha. And know the bloodline you were told to fear is the truth you cannot deny." Aethelric stepped forward, closing the distance. His hand brushed hers, tentative, and the moment the skin met, the sanctuary seemed to pulse, alive with energy. The twins stepped back, nodding once, satisfied. The fountain shimmered, light spilling over the stones, and Aethelric understood. the forbidden Luna was not simply hidden. She was the keeper of a legacy, a force meant to disrupt, to challenge, to reshape what the world had tried to constrain. "You are more than legend," he murmured. "And I am drawn to you, as if every step brought me here for this moment." Eadgyth's lips curved slightly, acknowledging the truth without yielding to it fully. "Then let the prophecy take its course," she said. "But know this, Alpha. To bind with me is to bind with history, with power, and with danger. There is no retreat." Aethelric swallowed. The magnitude of her words settled over him like a storm cloud. Beyond the sanctuary, he knew, rivals waited, allies whispered, and the world beyond would never accept what had been found. But inside the sanctuary, with Eadgyth's hand in his, Aethelric understood something deeper. Some truths cannot be silenced. Some bonds cannot be broken. And the forbidden Luna, at long last, was his to meet. The air within the sanctuary thrummed, alive with a tension that set every nerve on edge. Aethelric Wulfrune stood before Eadgyth, his hand still brushing hers, heart hammering as if it sought to escape the confines of his chest. The twins, wind-flayed and sinew-wise, remained silent at the edge of the courtyard, shadows and guides alike, watching with eyes that knew too much. Eadgyth inhaled slowly, her gaze steady and unflinching. "You feel it, don't you?" she asked. Her voice was soft, yet it carried weight that pressed against the walls. "The bond." Aethelric nodded, unable to speak immediately. It was more than instinct, more than familiarity. It was a pulling of two souls across time, a resonance that could not be denied. His Alpha's heart, hardened by years of rule and battle, recognized what centuries of prophecy had foretold. "You are my Luna," he finally admitted, the words tasting both sacred and forbidden on his tongue. "I cannot explain it, yet I feel it. Every fiber, every breath." His hand tightened over hers. "It is undeniable." Eadgyth's eyes glimmered with a storm of emotion, relief, caution, and an unyielding strength. "And yet," she said, "I am forbidden." Aethelric's gaze sharpened. "Why?" Her breath caught slightly, a flicker of vulnerability beneath her regal composure. "Because of my blood," she confessed. "House Aelfwynne. Our line was eradicated because our women were said to hold the power to challenge kings, to disrupt Alpha rule. They feared what we carried in our veins: foresight, dominance, and a legacy that could not be contained. My existence alone is considered a threat." Aethelric's heart clenched. Every whispered warning, every political calculation that had led him to this point fell away under the weight of truth. The woman before him, their bond forming like fire in his chest, was more than a Luna. She was a living testament to a lineage erased by fear. "You are not just forbidden because of who you are," he said, his voice steady, unwavering. "You are forbidden because the world cannot contain what it does not understand. I do not fear you. Accept you. All of you." Eadgyth's hand pressed against his chest, over the heart that beat in time with hers. A shiver ran through him as the mate bond pulsed, a force undeniable and sacred. The twins watched, their expressions unreadable, as the energy between the Alpha and the Luna intensified. "You feel it too," she murmured. "The bond." "Yes," Aethelric breathed. "I feel it. Stronger than anything I've ever known. And I will not let it be severed." The sanctuary seemed to respond. The wind whispered through the standing stones, carrying voices that had been silenced for centuries. Light shifted, glimmering across the carvings of House Aelfwynne, illuminating their intricacy and power. Even the very earth beneath their feet hummed with recognition, as if acknowledging the reunion of what had long been hidden. "Then we are bound," Eadgyth said finally, a solemn declaration, her eyes locking onto his with unshakable certainty. "And there is no turning back." Aethelric stepped closer, closing the final space between them. His forehead brushed hers, a gesture both intimate and ceremonial. "No turning back," he echoed. The words reverberated through him, cementing the reality of their union. The twins stepped forward, faces bright with satisfaction. Winflade's voice rang clear. "The prophecy is moving," Sinewise added, "and the world will not wait quietly." Aethelric felt the weight of that warning, yet for the first time it did not frighten him. The bond with Eadgyth was more than fate. It was purpose, a force that demanded he rise above politics, enemies, and the ever-looming threat of those who would see her bloodline destroyed. "They will come," he murmured, voice low. "They will try to separate us. But I will not yield. Not now. Not ever." Eadgyth's lips curved into a small, resolute smile. "Then we face them together, Alpha. Whatever comes, we endure." The air shimmered around them, a subtle manifestation of the bond fully acknowledged. Wolves howled in the distance, a chorus of both warning and celebration, their calls carried on the wind to the surrounding valleys. Somewhere beyond, rival packs stirred, courtiers whispered, and Beornwulf's scouts prepared their return. But within the sanctuary at this moment, there was only the pull of two souls entwined, the power of a bloodline long erased, and the undeniable truth that destiny had delivered Eadgyth into Aethelric's path. The twins withdrew to the edge of the ruins, watching with silent pride. Winflade whispered almost to herself. "He has accepted her. Fully." Sinewise nodded. "Now comes the reckoning. The world will challenge what has been revealed. And they will not relent." Aethelric tightened his grip on Eadgyth's hand, feeling the surge of the mate bond pulse between them. Every doubt, every fear, every obstacle that had delayed this moment fell away. They were bound, and the consequences, though vast and terrifying, would be faced together. Eadgyth lifted her gaze to the horizon, eyes sharp and resolute. "Let them come," she said, voice carrying through the ruins. "The Alpha King has found his Luna, and we will not be denied." Aethelric nodded, jaw set. "Then let the kingdom bear witness," he said. "We begin here, together, against all who would see this bond broken." The valley seemed to acknowledge their declaration. The standing stones glowed faintly, the wind shifted, and the first true light of dawn spilled across the sanctuary. For a fleeting, powerful moment, the world itself felt still, holding its breath in recognition of the forbidden union that had finally come to light. Aethelric and Eadgyth stood together at the heart of the sanctuary, hands clasped, hearts beating in unison. Around them, the twins watched, guardians of the prophecy that had led them here, knowing that the journey ahead would demand everything, yet certain that the bond now forged in fire could not be broken. And as the sun rose higher, spilling gold across the valley, Aethelric realized that this was only the beginning. The forbidden revelation had occurred, but the storm it would unleash was yet to come. The return journey from the sanctuary was silent, yet every step carried the weight of unspoken tension. Aethelric Wulfrune rode beside Eadgyth, the bond between them pulsing subtly, a living force that both grounded and energized him. The twins led, their presence calm yet insistent, guiding them along hidden paths few outsiders could find. By the time the edges of his kingdom came into view, the sun had dipped low, painting the sky in bruised oranges and purples. The valley below was quiet, but not peaceful. Word traveled fast, even through the whispered networks of scouts and loyalists. Aethelric's arrival did not go unnoticed. From the cliffs, he could see banners shifting in the wind, courtiers gathering in confusion and alarm, and a contingent of warriors waiting, tense, expectant. His throne had been secure, unquestioned. Now, the very foundations of his authority trembled. "They know," Eadgyth murmured, her gaze following the line of banners. "And they do not understand." "They never do," Aethelric said grimly. "But this is not for them. It is for her, for the bond, for what has been foretold. The first courtiers approached, faces etched with shock. Lord Elfgar, his closest advisor, bowed stiffly. "My king," his voice faltered. "This woman, she is of forbidden blood. This will cause unrest. The council will not." Aethelric held up a hand, silencing him. "I do not answer to fear. I answer to truth. And she is mine. Iluna. The bond is sacred, and it will not be denied." A ripple of murmurs spread through the gathered assembly. Some stared, mouths tightening. Others exchanged glances of disbelief. Whispers of conspiracy began to coil through the courtiers like smoke. From the far end of the courtyard, a figure emerged. Beornwulf Ironvein, his rival Alpha, who had long coveted both Aethelric's territory and the political sway of his alliances. His presence alone drew the eyes of every warrior present. "King Wulfrune," Beornwulf said, voice smooth but cold, teeth flashing in a tight smile. "I see the stories were true. You have found her, the forbidden Luna of House Aelfwynne. How a romantic." Aethelric's hand rested on the hilt of his sword, but he did not draw it. Instead, he fixed Beornwulf with a steady gaze. "And you, Beornwulf, are aware that interfering now will bring consequences not even your pack has faced." Beornwulf's smile widened. "Consequences? Perhaps. But do you not see, King? You risk everything, your throne, your pack, your life, for a woman whose bloodline is a threat. They will never accept her. They will never accept you if you bind yourself to her." Eadgyth stepped forward, her presence commanding. "And yet here we stand. The prophecy moves forward, and no threats, no whispers, no fear of bloodline shall break what is real." The murmurs grew louder. Aethelric's warriors shifted uneasily, torn between loyalty and doubt. A few stepped closer to Beornwulf, subtle but telling gestures that hinted at fractured allegiance. "This is not simply a woman," Aethelric said, voice ringing over the courtyard. "She carries a lineage erased because it threatened fear, not justice. She is a Luna of power, wisdom, and foresight. And I, Alpha King, accept her. As my mate, as the truth of what this pack will become." The tension was electric. Courtiers whispered, some in anger, others in awe. The loyalists closest to Aethelric tightened ranks, their loyalty unwavering. Yet he felt the invisible knife edge of distrust slicing through those who had stood beside him for decades. Wynflade and Sinewise remained at the edge of the gathering, their expressions calm, watchful. "They will test him," Wynflade murmured. "Not just rivals, but those who swear loyalty. Watch the fractures form." Sinewise nodded. "The challenge begins now. Every choice, every action, every word will shape the outcome. The bond is strong, but the world is relentless." The first act of defiance came swiftly. Lord Elfgar, unable to mask his fear, stepped forward. "My king, the council demands you reconsider. This union threatens the stability of the pack." "Enough," Aethelric snapped, his authority cutting through the murmurs like steel. "There will be no reconsideration. Those who cannot accept this truth are free to leave my court, but they will not impede what has been set in motion." A ripple of shock passed through the assembly. Some courtiers stiffened, ready to challenge him. Others bowed their heads, uncertain where loyalty now lay. Beornwulf's eyes glittered, amusement and malice intertwined. "So be it, King. But know this, the consequences of defying fear are not always visible. They lurk in shadows, in whispers, in those you trust the least. You have chosen a dangerous path." Aethelric met his gaze unflinchingly. "I have chosen the path of truth. Let the consequences come. We will face them together." Eadgyth's hand found his, fingers intertwining naturally. "Together," she repeated, the word binding them in shared resolve. And in that moment, the first true tremors of upheaval began. Packs would stir, alliances would fracture, and enemies, both known and unseen, would seek to exploit the union. Yet for Aethelric and Eadgyth, there was no turning back. The forbidden Luna had emerged, her bloodline revealed, and the Alpha King had claimed his bond. The world outside would resist. Within, fractures had begun. The true test of loyalty, power, and love had only just begun. The dawn brought no peace. Aethelric Wulfrune rode through the gates of his stronghold, Eadgyth at his side, and found the courtyard in uproar. Courtiers whispered in clusters, warriors exchanged uneasy glances, and the air was thick with suspicion and fear. Word of his union with Eadgyth had spread faster than the morning mist, carried by scouts, couriers, and the tongues of gossiping attendants. Beornwulf Ironvein waited at the far end, flanked by his most loyal followers, his expression unreadable but eyes sharp with intent. He stepped forward, the weight of his presence alone challenging Aethelric's authority. "King Wulfrune," Beornwulf called, voice smooth but laden with menace. "I warned you that this path would not be without cost. And yet, here you are, parading your Luna before those who should remain loyal to the throne." Aethelric halted, the courtyard falling silent at his command. He regarded Beornwulf steadily, every muscle coiled with the discipline of decades of rule. "She is no parade, Beornwulf. She is my mate, the one bound to me by fate and blood. You will address her with respect, or leave my presence." Beornwulf's lips twitched, an almost imperceptible sneer. "Respect. For a woman whose lineage threatens your rule. You risk everything for her, and yet you seem blind to the chaos she will bring." Eadgyth stepped forward, calm and poised, eyes meeting Beornwulf's without fear. "Chaos is not what I bring. Truth is. My bloodline was hunted because it could not be controlled, because it reminded kings and alphas alike of what power truly is. You may fear me, but I will not yield to your threats." A murmur rippled through the gathered warriors. Some shifted uneasily, unsure where their loyalties should lie. Others, emboldened by Eadgyth's courage, tightened their grips on weapons, ready to follow Aethelric into conflict. Beornwulf's smile hardened. "Then we shall see if your loyalty to her outweighs your duty to your pack." He gestured sharply, and several of his followers stepped forward, weapons drawn. "This bond cannot stand. We will test it, publicly, decisively." Aethelric drew his sword, the metal gleaming in the early light. "You may try, Beornwulf. But know this, every attack on her is an attack on me. And I will not falter." The first clash was sudden. One of Beornwulf's men lunged, spear aimed for Eadgyth, but Aethelric intercepted, steel meeting steel with a sharp clang that echoed through the courtyard. The twins moved as one, shadows among the chaos, guiding the fight subtly yet decisively. Winflade's laughter rang, bright and cruel, as she deflected blows with minimal effort, while Sinewise whispered instructions that seemed to bend the battlefield to their will. Eadgyth remained calm, her presence commanding. Even without drawing a weapon, her energy radiated strength, bolstering the morale of Aethelric's loyalists. Every move he made was synchronized with hers, a perfect blend of instinct and unspoken understanding. The clash ended as swiftly as it began. Beornwulf's forces withdrew, calculating and restrained, unwilling to press their advantage against a king whose bond with his Luna had already proven formidable. Yet the threat remained. Aethelric sheathed his sword and turned to Eadgyth. "This is only the beginning," he said quietly. "They will come again, stronger, more cunning. And they will exploit any doubt in my pack." Eadgyth's hand found his, firm and unwavering. "Then we face them together. Every challenge, every attempt to divide us, we will meet as one. You are my Alpha, Aethelric. And I am yours. The world may resist, but it cannot undo this bond." The twins observed from the shadows, nodding in approval. "He is learning," Winflade said softly. Sinewise added, "And she is showing him the depth of what is at stake. Their enemies will underestimate the power of trust forged in fire." Within the hour, Aethelric convened his council. Some courtiers resisted openly, questioning the wisdom of allowing a woman of forbidden blood such influence. Others remained silent, unsure where their loyalties truly lay. He spoke with authority, laying bare the truth of his choice, the bond with Eadgyth, and the inevitability of prophecy. "I will not sacrifice what is right for the comfort of tradition," he declared. "She is my Luna, and her bloodline is part of the truth this pack needs to survive and thrive. Those who cannot accept it will find themselves outside the bounds of my protection and authority." Whispers of dissent continued, but the steel in his voice, the clarity of his conviction, and the undeniable bond he shared with Eadgyth began to turn the tide. Loyalty was tested, yes, but it also became clearer who would stand by him, and who would falter when the storms came. As night fell, Aethelric and Eadgyth stood upon the battlements overlooking the city. Fires dotted the horizon, emissaries and rival factions moving in shadow, but for now the sanctuary of their bond held firm. "You are not alone in this," Eadgyth said, fingers entwined with his. "Whatever comes, we endure. Together." Aethelric's jaw tightened, resolve hardening. "Together," he echoed. And beneath the first stars of night, the Alpha King and his forbidden Luna stood unyielding, ready to face the backlash that would shape the fate of their kingdom. The battle for loyalty, power, and the future had begun. The kingdom had never felt so fragile. Aethelric Wulfrune returned to the central keep with Eadgyth by his side, but the air was thick with tension, suspicion, and quiet mutiny. The union of Alpha and forbidden Luna had ignited fractures long buried, and the ripples spread faster than the wind. Courtiers whispered in shadowed halls, guards exchanged furtive glances, and rival factions began to consolidate, testing loyalties and alliances. Aethelric rode into the throne room, the twins close behind, their presence both reassuring and unnerving. Winflade's eyes sparkled with an unspoken warning. Eyes everywhere would now watch him, and Eadgyth, not as king and Luna, but as threats to old hierarchies. Sinewise moved silently beside her sister, attuned to every tension, every heartbeat that betrayed hidden intentions. "My king," Lord Elfgar began, bowing with measured caution, "the council demands an audience. They wish to discuss your choice. The union. Your Luna." Aethelric's gaze swept the room. Faces were tight with apprehension. Some bowed, others avoided his eyes, calculating their stance. "They will speak," he said firmly. "But let it be known, no discussion will undermine the bond we have forged. I am Alpha and she is my Luna. That truth is immutable." Eadgyth stepped forward, her posture regal and unyielding. "And let it be known," she said, voice steady, "that my bloodline is not a threat to this kingdom, it is its strength. I do not come to rule, but to safeguard what has been lost. Those who resist are blind to what the future demands." Murmurs swept the room like wildfire. Some courtiers stiffened, bristling with indignation. Others softened, the strength of her conviction and the undeniable bond with Aethelric swaying doubt into cautious respect. Yet the fractures deepened. Lord Cedric, a high-ranking advisor long loyal to Aethelric but pragmatic in his politics, stepped forward, face pale but determined. "Alpha Wulfrune, we cannot deny the bond. But your union with a woman of forbidden blood has sparked unrest within the council and the pack. Rival factions sense weakness. Some have already sworn fealty to Beornwulf, hoping to exploit this disruption." Aethelric's eyes narrowed. "Then let them act. I will meet every challenge, every threat, every betrayal. My kingdom will not bend to fear. Loyalty will be earned, not demanded." From the back of the hall, whispers rose like a tide. Some called for judgment, others for rebellion. Aethelric's heartbeat quickened, not from fear, but from the electric awareness of the stakes. The path forward would demand more than force. It would require strategy, patience, and the courage to endure scorn and betrayal alike. Eadgyth's hand found his, fingers intertwining naturally. "You are not alone in this," she said, voice low. "The bond will guide us. And your people, those who remain, will follow you when they see truth, not fear." He pressed his forehead briefly to hers, drawing strength from her presence. "Then we proceed," he said. "Together." The first signs of organized dissent appeared that evening. A faction of courtiers and warriors loyal to tradition met in secret, plotting to undermine his rule. Messages were sent to neighboring pacts, painting the union as a dangerous precedent. Beornwulf's agents infiltrated markets, spreading whispers of instability, of a king who favored forbidden blood over loyalty. Yet even as the kingdom trembled, Aethelric acted decisively. Orders were given to strengthen patrols, reinforce loyalty among key houses, and expose any treachery before it could metastasize. His command was firm, deliberate, and unyielding. The twins remained at his side, guiding him subtly. Winflade whispered into ears only he could hear, offering insight into shifting loyalties and hidden threats. Sinewise interpreted subtle changes in behavior, signaling when to press authority and when to let silence rule. Together they were more than guides. They were instruments of the prophecy, ensuring that the king's bond with Eadgyth would remain unbroken. Days passed in a tense equilibrium. The court buzzed with subtext, every word and gesture weighed and measured. Eadgyth began to move among the people, her intelligence and poise slowly winning hearts, particularly among the younger warriors and those long disenfranchised by political manipulation. Her influence was subtle but undeniable. She was not there to dominate, but to illuminate truth and honor. Aethelric observed quietly, pride and awe mingling in equal measure. The bond they shared was no longer private. It had become a visible force, one that strengthened the Alpha while softening resistance. Yet even with growing loyalty, the kingdom remained divided. Old power structures resisted, factions plotted, and Beornwulf's shadow loomed larger with every passing day. One evening, as twilight bled across the sky, Aethelric and Eadgyth stood upon the balcony of the central keep, gazing over the city. Fires dotted the horizon, both mundane and sinister, lighting the landscape with flickering uncertainty. "They will come," Eadgyth said softly. "And some will betray, some will falter. But we endure. This bond. It is stronger than fear, stronger than bloodlines or politics." Aethelric's jaw tightened. "Then we prepare. Every alliance must be secured, every weakness shored up. I will not allow my pack to crumble, nor will I allow them to touch you." She placed her hand over his heart. "And you will not alone but with me. Together we will face what comes. And we will emerge not just unbroken but stronger." The first stars blinked into existence above them, pale and indifferent witnesses to the storm gathering below. Within the walls of the keep, the kingdom was divided, loyalties tested, and alliances fragile. Beyond, rival packs stirred, sensing opportunity. And yet, for the Alpha King and his forbidden Luna, the path forward was clear. Endure, unite, and wield the bond that no threat could sever. The kingdom was fractured, but its ruler was resolute. And the forbidden Luna, Eadgyth of House Aelfwynne, was no longer hidden. She was present, powerful, and undeniably entwined with the fate of the Alpha King and all who depended upon him. The storm had arrived. The sun rose over the fractured kingdom, spilling gold across the jagged skyline of Aethelric Wulfrune's stronghold. The Alpha King stood upon the battlements, Eadgyth at his side, their hands intertwined, fingers locked as if the strength of their bond could be felt through the very air. Below, the kingdom stirred with whispers, cautious glances, and a growing recognition that the Alpha King's choice could not be undone. The trials of the past weeks had tested them. Beornwulf's attempts to destabilize the pack had failed, thwarted by Aethelric's unwavering authority and the subtle but undeniable influence of Eadgyth. Factions that had sought to exploit fear had been exposed, their allegiances revealed and realigned. The kingdom remained divided, yes, but in its heart, a new unity was emerging, born not of tradition, but of truth and the undeniable bond between Alpha and Luna. "They are watching," Eadgyth murmured, her gaze sweeping the horizon. "Every faction, every rival, every whispering eye. They do not yet understand what has been forged here." "They never do," Aethelric replied, voice firm, yet soft with the awe that only Eadgyth could inspire. "But they will. And those who remain loyal will follow us, not out of fear, but because they see what is real, what is true." The twins appeared silently, moving as though they had emerged from the very shadows of prophecy itself. Winflade's eyes glimmered with satisfaction. "The bond holds, Alpha. Stronger than even the whispers dared suggest." Sinewise nodded. "And the truth of her lineage, once feared, is now the cornerstone of the loyalty we build. Those who doubted will learn, as all must, that strength cannot be denied." Aethelric turned to Eadgyth, feeling the pulse of their connection thrum beneath the skin, binding them in ways deeper than words could describe. "We have faced betrayal, opposition, fear. Yet here we are, together." Eadgyth pressed her forehead to his, her voice low but resolute. "Together. And nothing beyond these walls, nothing in the shadow of our enemies, will break what has been made. Our bond, our destiny, cannot be undone." The kingdom below shifted. Warriors who had once doubted now rallied to their cause, inspired not only by the Alpha's command but by the visible, undeniable truth of the mate bond that defied politics, bloodlines and fear. Courtiers and advisors began to realign, their whispers turning to action, their loyalties tested and clarified. Aethelric raised his hand, voice carrying over the courtyard. "Let it be known," he declared, "that this bond between Alpha and Luna is sacred, unbroken, and central to the future of this kingdom. Those who stand against it shall face the consequences of disloyalty. Those who embrace it shall shape the path ahead with honor and courage." Eadgyth's presence beside him amplified the proclamation, the subtle energy of her bloodline resonating outward, quiet yet unstoppable. She stepped forward, voice strong and unwavering. "The past has sought to erase my lineage, but today it stands unbowed. My bloodline is no longer hidden, no longer forbidden. And together we will ensure that what is right endures, no matter the cost." From the shadows, Beornwulf watched, his expression unreadable. Yet even he could not ignore the truth. The Alpha King and his Luna were bound, their power undeniable, and their bond a force that would shape the kingdom's future. Aethelric drew Eadgyth close, fingers tightening around hers. "The storm may continue," he murmured. "Enemies will rise. Challenges will persist. But this is ours. And nothing can undo it." She smiled, a quiet, resolute curve of lips. "Then we face all that comes. Together." The twins stepped aside, their roles as guides fulfilled but never forgotten. Winflade whispered softly, "The prophecy has moved. The rest is history in the making." Sinewise added, "And the kingdom will watch, learn, and adapt. The forbidden is no longer forbidden. The bond cannot be broken. Destiny is embraced." Aethelric lifted his gaze to the horizon, eyes bright with determination. The kingdom below, fractured though it may be, was his to lead. Not through fear, not through bloodlines of convenience, but through truth, loyalty, and the bond with the woman at his side. Eadgyth, his forbidden Luna, now revealed and undeniably his. The wind carried the distant howls of wolves, the echoes of ancient prophecy, and the whisper of fate itself. Together they had endured, survived, and claimed what was always meant to be theirs. The Alpha King and his Luna, united by destiny, stood as a beacon of unyielding power, unwavering love, and the courage to defy a world that sought to dictate their future. As the sun climbed higher, spilling light across the battlements, Aethelric pressed a hand to Eadgyth's cheek. "Whatever comes, we endure. Whatever rises against us, we meet as one." Eadgyth's eyes gleamed, a mix of fierce intelligence and tender devotion. "Together," she whispered, and the word resonated, carrying across the kingdom, across the valleys and forests, into the hearts of those who would follow, fight, and endure alongside them. The forbidden bloodline had risen. The prophecy had been fulfilled. And the Alpha King and his Luna, bonded in fire, trust, and destiny, were ready for whatever future awaited. The kingdom was divided, the enemies persistent, and the challenges endless. Yet in that moment, standing together on the battlements with the world at their feet, Aethelric and Eadgyth knew one immutable truth. Their bond could not be broken. Not by rival alphas, not by political machinations, not by fear or hatred. Their love, their destiny, and their strength would endure, and the world would witness the triumph of what was once forbidden. The stars emerged one by one, silent witnesses to the power, resilience, and unwavering devotion of the Alpha King and his forbidden Luna. The journey was complete, and yet it had only just begun.